I moved into a small apartment last fall. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom unit in an older building, but it was cheap and close to my job. Everything was fine for the first few weeks, but then weird things started happening. It began with small noises at night, soft creaks in the walls, the faintest sound of something shifting when everything else was silent. I chalked it up to the old building settling. But then I started waking up feeling like someone had been in my room. One night, I went to bed around midnight and woke up at 3 a.m. to a sound, a quiet rustling like fabric moving. My heart pounded as I listened in the dark. The sound came from my closet. I stared at the door, which was slightly ajar. I could have sworn I closed it before bed. My first instinct was to grab my phone and turn on the flashlight. I slowly pointed it at the closet, but the light only revealed my clothes and an old suitcase on the top shelf. I forced myself to get up and check. I moved my jackets aside, nudged the suitcase, even pushed at the back wall. Nothing, but the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. After that night, I started making sure the closet was completely shut before I went to sleep. It made me feel a little better, until one morning I woke up to find the door wide open. I stood there, frozen. I lived alone. No one else had a key. From that night on, I slept with my bedroom light on, but it didn't stop. One night, I woke up, feeling something was different. I could hear breathing, not my own. A slow, measured inhale and exhale. It was coming from inside the closet. I didn't move. I barely even breathed. The breathing continued. I don't know how long I stayed like that before I finally reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The second the light hit the closet, the breathing stopped. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I went straight to my landlord and demanded to know if anyone had access to my apartment. He seemed confused, assured me no one else had a key, but then he hesitated. "You're in 3B, right?" he asked. I nodded. He rubbed his chin and sighed. The last guy who lived there, he kept complaining about noises. He swore someone was living in the walls. One day, he just left. Never even came back for his stuff. I moved out the next week, but sometimes, even now in my new place, I still wake up in the middle of the night and feel like someone's watching me. I moved into a small rental house last year. It was an older place, a little rundown, but it was cheap and in a quiet neighborhood. The landlord was eager to rent it out, which should have been my first red flag. He only had one rule. The basement door stays locked. You don't need to go down there. At first, I didn't think much of it. A lot of old houses have creepy basements, and I had no reason to go down there anyway. But after a few weeks, things started feeling off. At night, I'd hear noises beneath the floorboards. Not just old house creaks, but shuffling, like someone moving around down there. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard it, a faint cough, coming from the vent in my bathroom floor. I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth. It was unmistakable, a human cough. I turned off the water and listened. Nothing. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Maybe it was just the pipes or something. But then, small things around the house started changing. I'd come home from work and find the kitchen cabinet slightly open. Sometimes my bedroom door would be unlocked, when I was sure I locked it. Once I found a half-empty water bottle on my counter, one I knew I didn't leave there. I started getting paranoid. I installed a cheap security camera in my living room and pointed it at the basement door. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. Just as I was drifting off, I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a door unlocking. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone and checked the camera feed. The basement door was open. I sat up in bed, heart hammering, but what made my blood run cold was the movement on the screen, a shadow, stepping out from the basement. I slammed my bedroom door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking as I called 911. I whispered that someone was in my house. The dispatcher told me to stay put. I listened, pressing my ear against the door. Soft footsteps. They didn't come to my room. Instead, they shuffled through the kitchen. And then, back to the basement. A few minutes later, the police arrived. They found the basement door wide open, and at the bottom of the stairs, a makeshift living space, a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, a pile of clothes, but no person. Whoever had been living down there was gone. The police searched the entire basement, but there was another door, a hidden entrance that led to an old storm drain. The officers said whoever it was must have escaped through there, but I knew better. They didn't escape. They were still down there, waiting for the moment to enter again. I moved out the next day, but sometimes, late at night, I think about that house. I think about the noises, the open cabinets, the cough in the vent, and I wonder, how long had they been living beneath me? I moved into my new apartment a few months ago. It was nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom on the third floor of an old brick building. The rent was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions, which was perfect since I had just gone through a rough breakup and needed a fresh start. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. The neighbors kept to themselves, and I liked the quiet. But then, weird things started happening. It began with the noises. Some nights, just as I was about to fall asleep, I'd hear muffled footsteps coming from the apartment next door. 3C. The odd part? 3C was supposed to be vacant. I found that out from my landlord a week after moving in. He casually mentioned that the last tenant had left in a hurry, breaking the lease. He hadn't found a new renter yet. At first, I convinced myself the noises were just the building settling, until they started happening during the day too. One evening, while I was making dinner, I heard shuffling on the other side of my kitchen wall. It was faint but distinct, like someone moving things around. I put my ear against the wall and listened. A deep, wheezing breath. I jumped back. My heart was hammering in my chest. I grabbed my phone and texted my landlord. "Hey, I think someone is in 3C. Are you sure it's empty?" "Yes," he said. 100% empty. Just checked last week. Maybe you're hearing the upstairs unit." That was impossible. 3C was next to me, not above. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the wall that separated my apartment from 3C. The building was old, thin walls, creaky floors. If someone was in there, I'd hear them. And I did. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a soft tapping sound. It was slow, rhythmic, coming from the wall behind my bed. I held my breath. The tapping stopped. Then, a moment later, I heard something worse. The sound of my bedroom door handle slowly turning. I bolted upright and flicked on my bedside lamp. My door was closed, locked. I swore I locked it. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I went straight to my landlord's office. I demanded he open 3C, right then and there. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. We went up together and he unlocked the door. The apartment was empty, no furniture, no signs of anyone living there, just dust and bare floors. But as I stepped inside, something didn't feel right. The air was heavy, like someone had just been there. The landlord seemed satisfied, but I wasn't. I knew what I heard. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I checked my door lock 3 times before getting into bed. But just as I was drifting off, my body stiffened, the same slow tapping, right against the wall. I sat up, my breath caught in my throat, and then something new. A voice coming from the other side of the wall, low, raspy. "I never left!" I grabbed my keys, my phone, and I left that apartment forever. The next day, I broke my lease and never looked back. But sometimes, when I think about that place, I wonder, did my neighbor ever really leave?